Well, hi, everybody. I'm Don Stewart, and welcome to another edition of Breaking News of this Tuesday, the 24th day of June, 2025. And as always, stories have come across the wire in the last few hours that are very important for us to understand as we assess everything that's taking place right now with Israel, Iran, the United States, the Middle East, and how it affects last day's Bible prophecy. So let's get to it. Okay, here's the headlines. Benjamin Netanyahu came out and said, "We achieved a historic victory that will last for generations." This is from Israel National News. Donald Trump says he's opposed to regime change in Iran, saying it will bring chaos. This is from the Times of Israel. Months are needed to assess damage, but Israel must prepare for another round with Iran. This is YNET News. And Zero Hedge has a great story. Where is Iran's uranium? Top secret leak U.S. intel says core nuclear components intact. All right, some very important stories, aren't they? Let's get to them. Okay, first of all, Benjamin Netanyahu finally spoke about the ceasefire and everything that had taken place in the 12-day war. He said, "We have achieved a historic victory that will last for generations." This is from Israel National News. The Prime Minister delivers statement on the end of Operation Rising Lion. "We have brought down the Iranian nuclear project," he said. He delivered an address to the nation this evening, Tuesday, following the end of Operation Rising Lion. Here's what he said. "In the 12 days of Operation Rising Lion, we achieved a historic victory. The victory will stand for generations. We removed two immediate existential threats: the threat of destruction by nuclear bombs and the threat of destruction by 20,000 ballistic missiles. If we had not acted now, the state of Israel would soon be facing the danger of destruction," Netanyahu declared. He noted that this did not happen because at the decisive moment we stood up like a lion and our roar shook Tehran and echoed throughout the world. In other words, these two issues that could have happened didn't happen because Iran was stood up to by Israel, and the world has now seen what Israel is capable of doing. He goes on to say, "Rising Lion's opening blow will be recorded in the annals of Israel's war and will be learned by all the armies of the world. In one stroke, one blow, we eliminated Iran's senior command, including three chiefs of staff and other senior figures," he emphasized. He noted that the U.S. had struck another fatal blow to the Iranian nuclear program. At Trump's direction, the U.S. military destroyed the Fordo facility. "We attacked dozens of other facilities, including laboratories and centrifuge manufacturing plants," Netanyahu said. "We completed the job and we damaged the entire archive, which contained all of Iran's knowledge to create an atomic bomb. All the careful actions of our soldiers took, all that the careful actions our soldiers took, destroyed Iran's nuclear project. And if anyone tries to revive it, we will act with the same determination and strength to thwart any such attempt. I thank my friends, President Trump and the U.S. on your behalf for their role in defending Israel and eliminating the Iranian nuclear threat. The U.S. joining not only on the defensive side, it is a historic event. It has never happened before. Israel's never had a great friend like Trump in the White House, and I thank him very much for the joint work," Netanyahu said. So again, the U.S. joined something unique, something special, and Netanyahu, rightly so, congratulates the U.S. and thanks them for their help. The prime minister goes on. Now he emphasized that Iran's intention to threaten Israel with tens of thousands of ballistic missiles has been removed. "We've destroyed headquarters, attacked Revolutionary Guard bases, Basij, it's one of the groups there, bases, and attacked symbols of power. Early this morning, a few hours before the ceasefire, we dealt the Ayatollah's regime the hardest blow in its history. We eliminated hundreds of regime operatives in the most crushing attack Tehran has seen in the last 50 years. We are not smug or complacent, quite the opposite. We must defeat Hamas and release all the hostages. To the families of the hostages, I say that during the war, we did not stop for a moment our efforts to bring all the hostages home, and we will not relent from this sacred mission until all is completed," he concluded. All right, so this is Netanyahu's statement. He gives, of course, a very positive spin on everything that happened. Very thrilled with what he's seen, very thrilled with the result. And they did do a lot of damages, but as we're going to see with a couple of other stories after our next one, it may not be that rosy when we look more specific at what really has taken place. Anyway, let's go to the second headline. Now, this one here is something we've been talking about, and Trump reiterated what we said this morning. Trump said he's opposed to regime change in Iran. He said it will bring chaos. This is from the Times of Israel. U.S. Donald Trump says he opposes regime change in Iran after indicating that he could back it just 2 days ago. He tells reporters aboard Air Force One en route to the Netherlands that regime change would cause chaos. 2 days ago, Trump posted on social media, if the current Iranian regime is unable to make Iran great again, why wouldn't there be a regime change? MIGA, or make Iran great again. So he changed his mind on that, and now he's opposed to regime change. And like we said, yesterday and today, we emphasize right now that a regime change would really obviously change the direction of Iran. If, of course, the Shah's oldest son, Pahlavi, comes back and would come into power, the Shah's family would come back into power after all these years. Since 1979 is when the Shah left and when the Islamic Republic of Iran was formed by the Ayatollah Khomeini and at that year. And so it'd be a whole different ball game. But this regime now is beholden to Russia, beholden to China. They're in the arms of Russia and doing business with both them and China. And of course, this fits with the Russian connection. What the Bible said is going to happen at the time of the end. There'll be a last days invasion of Israel, led by Russia, and one of the top countries that goes along will be the country of Iran. So it shows Russia and Iran have a future together in a coordinated effort to invade Israel and plunder it. And so what we see here with the fact of what Trump said today, what we've seen happen the last 24 hours or so, a regime change now does not seem possible, even though there was a huge groundswell bubbling up right before the ceasefire was announced, that it could very well have happened, but it looks like now that it will not happen. So this is one outcome of the ceasefire. All right, headlines 3 and 4. These are important to check out. YNET has this one. Months are needed to assess damage, but Israel must prepare for another round with Iran. What damage did we really inflict on Iran's nuclear and missile programs? Is there a real possibility of a quick breakout to a simple nuclear bomb? And how willing are the Iranians to enter serious negotiations and make real concessions to the U.S.? These are the questions that must now be examined alongside closing gaps in Israel's civil defense. Israel must ensure that Iran is not attempting a rapid breakout towards a basic nuclear weapon, the author says here, um, such as a crude dirty bomb. We referred to that earlier, using its remaining stockpile of 60% enriched uranium and several hundred advanced centrifuges reported hidden away. Iran may try to buy time for its scientists to assemble a rudimentary nuclear device that could be mounted on a missile. If successful, and here's something very important to consider, this could grant the Islamic Republic de facto status as a nuclear power, not a first tier one, but one powerful enough to deter both Israel and the United States. As a result, Israel must ramp up intelligence gathering efforts in close coordination with the U.S. to determine whether the war's stated goals were indeed achieved. That includes assessing the damage to Iran's nuclear weapons project, especially its enrichment facilities, and verifying how much high level enriched uranium Iran still has and whether any of it remains hidden, potentially enabling a swift nuclear breakout. Again, that's one of the real worries in our next article. I'll talk about that even more. Another key focus is Iran's remaining missile capabilities. While Tehran launched ballistic missiles during the war, its cruise missile and drone arsenals were barely used. It's possible Iran still retains significant offensive capacity in these areas, posing a continuing threat to Israel. A third major task will be tracking down whether Iran is willing to re-engage quickly in nuclear negotiations with the U.S. and how flexible it is regarding American demands. The issue is not only whether Tehran will agree to halt uranium enrichment on its own soil, but also whether it's willing to limit its missile program. The pace and nature of these negotiations, and particularly whether Iran allows strict, intrusive inspections by the International Atomic Energy Agency. Let's stop right there. You know they're not going to do that. Never have, never will. So that's a pipe dream. But thinking, well, now we'll get these really intrusive inspections by the IAEA, and we'll know exactly what they're doing. That'll never happen. Anyway, and also this, they said, will help determine whether the war met its strategic objectives. And again, there's going to be some things there's no answer to. The U.S. really won't get the answer to, and neither will the world. If Iran refuses to compromise on both nuclear and missile issues and blocks effective oversight, which of course they will, Israel may have to reconsider its course of action. Like another attack, I guess. Both damage assessments and negotiations over a new nuclear deal could take several months, possibly up to a half a year. If by then results are unsatisfactory from Israel's perspective, or if Iran drags its feet, here we go. Another military confrontation may be necessary, ideally coordinated with Washington. Now, that doesn't fit what we just read about what Netanyahu said, right? About this is going to help Israel for generations to come. Right now, according to this, if something doesn't happen in the next like 6 months, they may have to revisit this again. Either way, Israel must already begin preparing for that possibility. This includes closing the significant gaps in the country's civil defense infrastructure, particularly in fortified shelters and safe rooms. Yeah, that is one of the problems. You notice several of the people that died during these bombing raids were actually in the safe rooms, these fortified shelters, and they didn't save them from the bombs that hit. So they need to rethink this. Without such protection, no government could ethically justify entering another conflict from a position of strength. Another urgent priority is ending the war in Gaza. Let's not forget that. That's still going on. And securing the return of the hostages. Failing to bring them home would severely damage Israel's national resilience. Prefer surrendering to the great Satan. Earlier today, we wrote that Iran's leadership, this is one of the headlines here, by the way. Earlier today, we wrote that Iran's leadership appeared to have chosen de escalation, effectively bringing about the ceasefire. While not all the details of the behind the scenes talk or the exact timeline are yet known, it seems the Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei and other senior officials signaled their desire or even request for a dignified ceasefire once they opted from a weak, pre coordinated response to the U.S. strike. So, in other words, it's obvious they have backed down. They wanted to back down. They were begging for a ceasefire for at least a week or so. And so the military pressure was bad. But once the U.S. got into it, it was impossible for Iran to stay in it. So that's where we're at right now. So we will see where it goes from here. Now, this next article is going to piggyback something on that. This is from Zero Hedge's Tyler Durden. And the question is, where is Iran's uranium? Top secret leak U.S. intel says core nuclear components are intact. All right, this is a big issue. Where is Iran's uranium? Truce highlights the mystery over the stockpile. That's Bloomberg's latest heading over the biggest mystery that remains in the war. There's also the pressing question of whether Trump's massive airstrikes and B-2 bombers actually truly destroyed the facilities and these stockpiles that were supposedly there. The Iranians aren't dumb and likely took drastic steps to protect, conceal, or likely move these enriched stockpiles. Some 400 kilograms, that's about 900 pounds, by the way, according to most reports, as wave after wave of Israeli warplanes hit Iran, significantly before the U.S. sent its bombers this past weekend. It appears, and I got this in bold print, it appears core components are still intact, though Iran has long maintained it is merely for peaceful nuclear energy development, which of course nobody believes. The New York Times is currently reporting that the U.S. operation merely set Iran's nuclear program back by a few months. Let me read that again. According to the New York Times, remember Netanyahu said it's going to be for generations. The result of this is currently reporting that the U.S. operation merely set Iran's nuclear program back a few months. And emerging intelligence also points to the stockpile having not been destroyed, which contradicts the current victory lap claims made by President Trump and some of his top officials. And a huge development below is a fresh CNN reporting based on a leaked assessment by the Defense Intelligence Agency, the DIA. Here's what it says. The assessment, which has not been previously reported, was produced by the Defense Intelligence Agency, the Pentagon's intelligence arm. It is based on a battle damage assessment conducted by CENTCOM, the U.S. Central Command, in the aftermath of the U.S. strikes, one of the sources said. Here we go. The analysis of the damage to the sites and the impact of the strikes on Iran's nuclear ambitions is ongoing and could change as more intelligence becomes available. Here again in bold print. But the early findings are at odds with President Donald Trump's repeated claims that the strikes completely and totally obliterated Iran's nuclear enrichment facilities. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth also said on Sunday that Iran's nuclear ambitions have been obliterated. One unnamed defense official quoted in the report says centrifuges are largely intact and more based on the apparently top secret leak DIA intel report. So the DIA assessment is that the U.S. set them back maybe a few months, this person said. Now, the White House has acknowledged the existence of the assessment, but said they disagreed with it. In other words, disagreed with their own assessment from their own people. All right, so here's where we're at right now. It's the day after Netanyahu is, praising what happened and taking, he's taking his victory lap and saying for generations Israel's going to be doing great, safe now, although we'll be, also on guard. Trump says there doesn't need to be a regime change in Iran. We're going to have more of the same old, same old. So, of course, they're going to continue to enrich uranium, as we said earlier. There's a couple other stories about that out right now that they're going to continue on doing it with the idea, of course, of building some type of nuclear device, some type of bomb that can destroy the little Satan Israel and the big Satan United States of America. So it seems whatever happened, and a lot of damage was done. No one doubts that it still is incomplete. As we said, there's no way they could actually obliterate or end the threat from Iran. We did a story on that about a month ago. It was really interesting. This retired military person said, "Look, what the best they can do is just set it back. The chance of ending this was like ended in 2013. They're going to be going forward. They've got the know-how. Just a matter of time to see what they do." So this story we will unfortunately have to revisit in the future, but in the meantime, this is where we're at right now. And at least it's calm over the skies in Iran and in Israel. And so it may last for a while. It may not last long. We'll give you the latest, whatever takes place. I'm Don Stewart as always. Thanks for watching, and may the Lord richly, richly bless.